Good morning. This is June 29th, our press conference for June 29th here at the City of Pensacola. We're going to talk to you about a couple of things that are happening right now in the City of Pensacola, and then we're going to talk about COVID. But I'm going to start off with a couple other things that are happening. Hollis T. Williams, the Board of County Commissioners has awarded a contract to HDR Inc. to plan and design the long-awaited Hollis T. Williams Stormwater Park located under I-110 pass from Maxwell to Wright Street in the City of Pensacola. We're very excited about this. This is a restore project that will get funding there. The design will include stormwater management, dual use, recreation, multi-use path, landscaping, lighting, early learning activities, and the skate park, as well as programmed art space. HDR has completed similar projects, including the historic Fourth Ward Park and Rodney Cook Park in Atlanta. Citizens will be engaged in this design through a series of public workshops, surveys, and interviews, so stay tuned. Let me also say that this is going to be done in sections. So the very first section the county has agreed with us to get started on is the very southern section, which is where the skate park is. So as soon as we can get this done, we can move into construction with any of the improvements that need to be done there with the park, as well as moving forward with the money we already have set aside for the skate park. So this is huge news for those of you who've been contacting us about the skate park and wanting to know where that is. We agree. We've been ready for that to go. So if we can just get this stuff taken care of, and we have sections, I really appreciate the county agreeing to look at it in sections so we can move that southern portion first and begin to move forward on the skate park. So thank you very much to the Escambia County for doing that. Neighborhood cleanup this past weekend. We had a neighborhood cleanup in the Sanders Beach, Bayou Grande, West Garden District neighborhoods, and we've collected over 50 tons of bulk waste, 525 gallons of paint, and 221 tires. The next mayor's cleanup will be Saturday, July 25th in Northwest Pensacola. Learn more at cityofpensacola.com. Yard trash pickup. Just a note from sanitation is back on schedule with yard trash pickup and bulk waste collection. Back in the spring, yard debris increased from 35 tons a day to 100 tons a day, which is an increase of about 185% per day. So that's an increase. They actually went, our loads were 285%, really, if you consider what we were picking up that 35. So again, just the increase was 185%. I'd like to recognize all of those in our sanitation area. John Pittman and his team have done an amazing job. I know we've gone out there and seen them. They did all of this without any additional people or anything else, any additional equipment. Now you will see some things coming forward in the next budget. We really ran our equipment into the ground a little bit, but we're working on keeping it maintained and what we can. But we're going to need your effort to help stretch as we go forward. You're probably going to see some things in budget. We're going to ask for another $1 a month related to these expenditures for equipment, because we have simply our equipment has been heavily worked this entire year. But those guys did it without any more personnel. They did it on their own. They collected it. They kept it going. We got all your stuff taken care of. And trust me, every one of you, there must not be a dead tree or a dead piece of yard debris in your yard, because you put it out on the street and we picked it up, and we're going to continue to do that. But that team really deserves a lot of credit, and I just want to give John and his whole team out there at sanitation a huge thank you, and let them know that all the citizens are very proud of what they've been able to accomplish. 4th of July closures. City of Pensacola Administrative Office, City Hall, and City Community Resource Centers will be closed Friday, July 3rd in observance of the 4th of July holiday. The exceptions are, of course, Osceola Golf Course and Roger Scott Tennis Center will remain open. Again, we have no sanitation on Friday, so those services won't impact anyone. So your regular garbage will run regular all of this week. We just don't have a Friday service, and there's nobody that is getting Friday pickups. So that's our catch-up day for sanitation. So we will have no sanitation services on Friday. This now brings us up to, I think, what many of us are out there dealing with, COVID. COVID cases have dramatically increased. As you see, we now have 1,660 positive cases of COVID in Escambia County, according to DOH. The latest update from the state shows an 11.9% test rate, for the 27th, a 14.3% test rate for June 26th, and a 15.8% test rate for June 25th. The number of hospitalizations is also increased as of yesterday to 26. However, today, I know already this morning I've gotten stuff from West Florida, and they are at 25. So we're probably going to be higher than 46 today. Let me explain to you what's happened with that. Not this past Friday, but the Friday before, West Florida was at 7 people. 7 people. Today they're at 25 in about a 9-day span. So that tells you what's going on and what we're seeing. Now, the good news is, and I'm going to talk about this a little bit later in the conversations I had with some of them, they're not quite as critical in the hospital, and we're going to go over some of the conversations we had with the governor. But again, I want you to understand how much this has increased and what we are dealing with in this spike. I think our 3 hospitals are able to deal with what's going on in front of them, but there's no doubt that this is something that we've got to help them through. We've got to help our community through. And the best way that you can contribute to this, you as a citizen of our community can contribute to helping us get better. The way you do that is by wearing a mask. On Friday, I issued Declaration of State of Emergency 20-03 requiring face coverings be worn by employees and patrons inside businesses within the city limits of Pensacola. This order only applies when you are inside a business. The goal was to have it apply to businesses since it is difficult or impossible to practice social distancing in many of these businesses. I'd like to emphasize that this order only applies to businesses within the city limits. That's within the city's jurisdiction. It does not apply to unincorporated Escambia County. For more information about the order and exemptions that apply, please visit cityofpensacola.com. Also, please know that there will be a special meeting of the City Council. The City Council will hold a special meeting tomorrow at Tuesday, June 30th at 5:30 to consider 2 items. One is the extension of the mayoral declaration of a state of emergency, and the other is a proposed emergency ordinance number 3620 requiring mandatory face covering citywide in public spaces. This meeting is open to the public only via live stream and phone. The meeting will be streamed at cityofpensacola.com/video. For instructions how to give input or to participate via phone, visit cityofpensacola.com. So again, I hope you will have a chance to take a look at that. Let's talk a little bit about, and I know there's a lot of consternation. I got lots of emails on both sides, people who like having the face mask, people who don't like having the face mask, and I understand it. First and foremost is the face mask is dealing with science. And I know many of you out there have said the face mask does nothing to help me if I wear it. You are 100% correct. It's not for you. You are wearing it for everyone else. And let me make sure I make that perfectly clear. You are wearing that for everyone else. Let me tell you, there's a lady, what we talked about significantly with the governor here was what the governor said is one of the biggest problems that we're having, and the same with the hospitals said, it's multi-generational people living together. It's if one person ends up catching it and then taking it home and giving it to other people. I can personally tell you from experience, I've lived with somebody who had COVID. My son had COVID for 2 weeks. We lived through it. He wore a mask whenever he was at our house and not in his room. None of us got it. None of the 3 of us got it. So if the biggest thing we're worried about is contamination in your home, I can tell you, I didn't get it when the person contaminated. Now, please understand me. None of the well people in our household wore a mask. We didn't need to wear a mask. The sick person did. The problem that we're having right now is we cannot distinguish between who is sick and who is not sick. In the meeting when the governor was there with Sacred Heart, and again, I spoke at length on Friday with both Dawn Rudolph at Sacred Heart and Mark Faulkner, had very good conversations with both of them, and I'm going to talk a little bit about what they said. But they said some of the same thing that the governor said. It is very likely that we have 10 times more people with COVID than what we have diagnosed. Now, let me be very clear. In the last week, we have increased almost in Escambia County by, I think with the numbers today, we're almost 500 people. 500 people. That means There are 5,000 people who actually have COVID in our community. There are 4,500 people who have not gotten tested and we don't know that have COVID. Some of those could be truly asymptomatic, but most of those are mild symptomatic or pre-symptomatic. In both cases, both pre-symptomatic and mild symptomatic, in other words, you have a little sniffle, you may have a slight sore throat, but you're like, hey, it's no big deal. I've had these before. This is like regular stuff. You may actually have COVID. There are almost 5,000 people in our community who have not been diagnosed that are walking around with COVID. That is the reason. That's the reason the mask is essential. The mask is essential because we don't know whether you have COVID or not. I know many of you are out there talking about how it's your right to do everything that you want to do. I totally understand. We have lots of rights in America, and we're trying to deal with all of them. But let me tell you, go to a restaurant right now. Can you smoke? Go to a public building. Can you smoke? Can you light up? You're free. You have all these freedoms. You cannot smoke. Why can you not smoke? It's not because the smoke, if you want to destroy your own health and smoke, you can go home, you can go in your own car and you can smoke. The problem is when you smoke, it impacts potentially other people's health. It is the same thing that is happening here with the mask. If you have COVID and you don't know it, you are potentially spreading it to somebody else. So right now, I don't know if I have COVID or not, but you can bet when I'm in City Hall, when I'm other places, I wear this mask. In the event that I am a pre-symptomatic or mild symptomatic person, I am not spreading COVID to people here in the office or anywhere in the community. I don't wear this mask to protect me. This mask does nothing for me. It does everything for helping you not spread it to somebody else. A lady told me her biggest concern is her son works at Publix on 12th Avenue. She said she's very concerned that because her son works at Publix, comes home, lives in a house with her, and they have a grandmother that lives with them as well. Her biggest concern is her son wears a mask every single day, and she understands very, very well that mask does not protect him. But what she's concerned at is the people who come into Publix. He wears that mask to protect you, to protect all of you that come into that 12th Avenue Publix, the Strong Street Publix there. If you walk in there, this gentleman behind one of the desks is wearing a mask, and he's protecting you. What his mother wants to know, and his grandmother that lives with him, why aren't you wearing a mask to protect them? It's a common courtesy. All we're doing right now is asking for this. I had a great conversation with Mark Faulkner. Mark said, you know, if we were really serious about this mask thing, we could actually knock out where we are right now in 3 weeks. We could have COVID back down to where it was in early June in 3 weeks if we wore masks. That's the reason we did it. Again, it is not a situation. So many of you that have written me, and I appreciate it. I can't understand the number of you that write me and tell me this is all political. The virus doesn't care what party you're in. The virus doesn't care anything about it. More than likely, some of the things we're going to talk about is that I do believe that we are not seeing the cases be as viral, but that doesn't mean, as Mark Faulkner clearly said to me, that doesn't mean we're not going to have death. And if we can prevent death, and if you could actually help that gentleman's grandmother by just wearing a mask and going in there and protecting him, who protects her and keeps her alive, that's worth you wearing a mask. It's worth me wearing a mask. So again, I ask that you think about wearing a mask, not for yourself. This is not for you. It is for everyone else, because you don't know if you have it. We have 4,500 people in the Pensacola area right now who have not gotten tested and have COVID more than likely. That clearly came out from the governor yesterday. The things that we talked about with both Dawn and Mark, and the governor confirmed those yesterday. What we're seeing are younger people getting it, which is not necessarily a problem. Younger people on their own getting it is not the problem. If they get it, it's more likely they're healthy. We're seeing, if people do go to the hospital, well, the one thing that both people told me is it's amazing the number in the hospital, but they're not acutely sick like they were when it was getting in nursing homes. When we had the nursing home, that was where we had people in ICU and all the other things that we had to do. But it is not as acute with the individuals that are getting it now. But here's the problem. They can spread it. If they're not wearing masks, they can spread it. Again, the biggest issue is this large crowd congregation. I think you saw the governor talk about unfortunately, some bars have been closed, and in some way bars that operated bars like we used to know them, where everybody congregated, that's probably not a bad thing. But there are probably, I know John out there with 850 is probably on today, talked about yesterday with the governor there. What about these craft breweries that are actually having people sit down at seats just the same as a restaurant? There, in case we have not seen, is the governor is very clear, opening restaurants and opening businesses did not cause this spike. If people act like a restaurant, we are not going to see a spike. I am working right now and continue to work with him. I want to find a way to help those craft brewers and other bars that want to operate like a restaurant. If you want to operate like a restaurant, have your patrons get drinks and go sit down and just not mill around and congregate in one spot, I'm more than welcome to work with you. The one thing I made very clear to the governor when we talked, I have no problem doing a mask ordinance, but I am not going to close businesses. I do not want to do that. I don't want to create problems with people, in their work. I want as many people to get to work and this virus to be as little disruptive as to us as possible. I agree with the governor that I think at the time in March, when we didn't know anything, we had no PPE, we didn't know what was going on, that it was the right decision at that time for us to do that. But now that we're opening, we're seeing, and we saw in May, we can have businesses open. If we act appropriately, we can have businesses open and we can have low COVID. They are not mutually exclusive. So we need to have businesses open. I agree. I'd love to find ways to see craft breweries and to figure out if they operate like a restaurant to be open. There's no reason that if you operate like a restaurant, you shouldn't be able to be open. The thing that we need to stop is out there, these large congregation areas where multiple people get packed into tight situations, and especially when they don't have masks. And again, when you're drinking and when you're sitting down eating, you're not required to wear a mask with this ordinance. I went out to eat. I went out to McGuire's on Saturday. When you sit down, you don't have to wear the mask. So we're not asking you to do that. But in table settings, we saw it all along in the month of May. We are not creating COVID by that. I know some of you out there are very upset also that we excluded churches. Well, the problem was churches are not by definition businesses. However, I can tell you at my church, I went last night, everyone is required to wear a mask. So there are many churches within the city limits of Pensacola that are requiring you to wear a mask. And I think it would be prudent if they did. But I don't want to tell businesses churches they can't have services inside. We did that for a while. But now we're allowing them to do it in places that they have social distancing and they allow masks. All of these things, if we do it, we can stop this virus. So it's not a fake virus, it's a real virus. What we need you to do is to obey what we're telling you to do and the instructions that we've given you. If you can do that, again, much like Mark Faulkner said, we can beat this in a couple of weeks. There are a couple of good things as well that are coming out of this. Not only is there less acuity, in other words, the cases are not as severe, but we're doing better at what we know, and the governor highlighted this yesterday. Our ability to work with it every day that goes by, our medical teams are doing a better job of understanding the virus and how to work with it better, so that people that do have to go to the hospital, or even people that are home with mild symptoms, find better ways to deal with the virus. So we are constantly learning that. And then third, it was alluded to in the thing, and it's going to determine more research. But again, what they said they are learning from Europe is that it appears that as the virus mutates over time, it appears to be getting less viral. This is similar to what happens with other viruses. I'm not saying they know that for sure right now, but based on some preliminary research in Europe, they're beginning to think that's where it's going, and it's going to take more research here to understand that as well. But by and large, time is on our side in some of those things. But it is very likely that we may still be dealing with COVID for a long time. Now, with that said, this is a significant peak of community spread. The masks are necessary while we have this. If we beat this thing back down to where it was in early June and May, we didn't require you to wear a mask. There will be times we come back and we simply don't require masks. But right now, where we are in dealing with this spike that's come up, this is why we're asking you to wear a mask. And it's not about you, It's about the other individuals that are around you. It's just like smoking. It's not about we allow you to do whatever you want with your health. We give you the freedom to do that. It's when your health potentially impacts on somebody else's health, much as the same way the mask. If you don't wear the mask, what you're really doing is you're potentially hurting other people, because there are 4,500 people out there that are not diagnosed, that are very mild symptoms, probably don't even know they have it. But if you're pre-symptomatic or you're mild symptomatic, you still can pass this along. You are contagious. And again, my own experience, I lived with somebody in there, but we never allowed that individual to ever come outside their room without a mask. And you know what? None of the three of us got it, despite the fact that now in contact tracing, they're seeing the household as one of the worst places to get it. I can tell you, if you wear the mask is proof that if the contaminated individual wears the mask, it's going to save, we're going to save people from getting COVID. And again, we may be asking thousands of you out there that are unaffected to wear a mask, but could you just help us for a little while get through this? If we can get through this and beat it down, we can get back to where we don't need masks. And the one thing we're not going to do, I don't want to go back and start closing businesses. And I want to find ways to reopen some of the businesses that have been closed, but it's going to require them to operate in a way that they operate like restaurants, where people sit down and order there, and then they're able to sit down in isolated areas, and there's not as much contamination. So that's a little bit about where we are and what's going on with the mask order. I'm more than happy to answer any questions from the media. I think more than anything else, we've got, and I guess there's one thing here that Casey asked me to talk about, just to be clear with a couple people. There was a big misconception going on out there that if you have a concealed weapons permit, you cannot wear a mask. That is not true under this ordinance. The mask is, nothing requires one way or another with a concealed weapons permit, you in a mask. So again, if you have a permit, that's simply not true. But we'll continue to work through that. There are a lot of things that are going on, and I know there's a lot of, it's difficult to disseminate information that's going on, but I'm happy, Casey, to answer any questions.
First question is from Jeremy. Why did you decide to mandate masks? What changed since last week?
One of it was businesses saying that they needed support in doing it. That came out loud and clear last Wednesday when we were talking with some people, so we began to talk in-house. The other part is clearly dealing with the hospitals and what they are telling me. There's not a single hospital here. There's not a single doctor here, that's not telling us about it. I had several people talk about the dais, and yes, there are a couple things. The governor has not made it mandatory for the state of Florida, absolutely. But he also hasn't reversed trends in places that choose to do it. I will also tell you that the governor, when he walked in and out of places, he had a mask on. I can assure you, he's got a mask on, and when he's walking in and out of places, he's obeying that because he understands what's happening with it. The fact that he hasn't required one for the state of Florida, I believe, is because not every area in the state of Florida is receiving the same impact, and he has allowed local jurisdictions to determine. When we go from 11 cases in the hospital to 46 to perhaps now today, by the time I get the rest of them, we'll be over 50. The fact that we've increased the hospitalizations by that point, the fact that we've gone to yellow in both our fire service and our police force, in some of the members that we have out, in some of the labor that we've lost due to the virus, these are reasons why I felt it was critical for us to put in a mask ordinance and give those businesses the opportunity to do that. Again, Jeremy, many of those things come from the stories of individuals who are in businesses. They're wearing masks to protect you, and their concern is, why don't you wear a mask when you go in their business to protect them? The mask they wear does not protect them at all, but the mask you wear totally protects them. So again, that's what we're working with, and why we decided to move forward. But I do believe very clearly in the conversation, we could be out of wearing masks in 2 to 3 weeks if we all wore them and we were effective in what we did. We could stop the spread of this, and that was discussion I had with both hospitals.
This is from Jeremy as well. Are you considering anything further insofar as precautionary measures, for example, going beyond state's bar closure, perhaps dialing back restaurants opening?
I do not believe, we want to be very clear. I think to beat things back, we could either go closure or we could go mask. I think we need to do mask. Closure is very harmful to this community in so many ways because of the jobs and the impact it makes financially and economically. I don't think we want to go back there. I think we realized that the things we did in that area that created it, and the problem is going to be there, you get one chance to kind of do the stimulus that was done through Congress. You don't get two, and so there's no real opportunity to go back to the well with those kind of spending. So I don't think you're going to see closings. I think closing is something we've got to stay away from. But we can do the mask. One of the things that the governor was very clear on, and I agree with him, you look back at when we had phase one open and even early phase two, as we went through and opened all of phase one, we still had low numbers. We had low numbers up to 9 days ago. So we were doing things right with, it's as the governor said, it's not opening the businesses that created the challenge. It's us ourselves getting lax about things like washing hands, shaking hands, wearing masks. These are things that we can control individually. The other part is getting together in large groups. And again, we've really seen this this is why that cohort they talk about from about 18 to 44, those two, there was, I think there's one in the 20s and one in the 30s that basically shot up dramatically. And that's where our biggest caseloads are. And that's because people in that typical age group tend to congregate. And that's been, it's our own behavior. It's not the businesses being open. It's us and the way we're managing our behavior. If we could manage our behavior correct, we could beat this thing back in 3 weeks. And I think we could do that. But it really takes all of us working together. We're going to need everybody working together. I understand that city of Gulf Breeze and the city of Milton had followed suits with trying to work with masks. I really hope Escambia and Santa Rosa County would think about that. If we could do that in a way, we could beat this thing back to where we were without really doing closures. We don't need to close. So again, I think that's the way we'd rather see happening. I do think you're going to see some pauses. We're in a yellow. We talked about some things happening today. We were supposed to open our splash pad. Jeremy, we're not going to do that. I told Brian to wait 3 weeks and wait 3 weeks, and then let's see where we are in 3 weeks. If we beat this back and we can open it, then let's open it at that point. I want us to get back to life as normal. I think we can get back to life as more normal. But when we have these spikes, we need to do the responsible thing that we can do, because if we do the little things, the washing your hands, not shaking hands, wearing masks, if we do those things, it's not closing a business that's stopping us. It's doing those kind of things that we've got to start doing.
This is from Jeremy also. What are your thoughts on the Blue Angels air show at the beach? Is this 4-day event prudent in light of the COVID increase?
And again, I don't control the beach, and I certainly don't control the U.S. Navy. I know Andrew's out there somewhere laughing. Andrew McKay, he sent me plenty of texts of why I don't control these places. But I think at the end of the day, I think Pensacola Beach allows for proper social distancing if we do it. Let me be real clear. The governor was clear on this, and this is something we started when we started in May with doing this. And I know we had this huge debate in downtown Pensacola about what do we do with these Sunday strolls. The whole idea, and what the governor continues to say, and he's absolutely right on this, if we can be out during the day and outside and spatially distance, if you can spatially distance, and my understanding, this is not going to be a normal show. This is going to be a show that runs up and down the beach from Perdido all the way to Pensacola Beach. So there's no reason to congregate in a mass turning area, and where they usually have a central point. So from that standpoint, if you can go out, there's, I think, there's 13 miles of Santa Rosa Island Beach, and there's probably another 11 miles of Seashore Beach, and then you go all the way over to Perdido Key. I think overall there's something like 53 miles or something of Escambia County beach from one end to the other of what we've got. So if we can properly space in that area, I don't think it's a problem. Now, if we're going to all congregate in Casino Beach like we do for what you and I think of every other time, then that's a definite no. But again, I think I understand what they're hoping to accomplish, both Escambia County and the U.S. Navy, and I think it can be accomplished. Again, the behavior is on our part. It's not on their part for doing it. It's on our part. We can't put your stuff right next to each other, your umbrellas and everything else. And you know what? Once we get Casino Beach has just a few people, you got to move on. But the good news is they're going to fly the entire beach, is my understanding. So spread out on the beach. I think if you spread out, there are areas where you can go in the seashore that are absolutely, you're not going to be by anybody. So I think it can be done. It really is. It's really determined on us and how we respond to it. And I think as long as we respond to it in a dispersed way, I think you can have the flyover. But it's really going to be incumbent on us as citizens more than organizations if we got to do it the right way.
And this is from Jeremy. Have you spoken with county officials regarding requiring masks?
I have spoken with Lumen about it, and he and I spoke. I know that Robert had talked with Mark Faulkner. I know that Mark told him everything he told me. So I don't know. I mean, those are the two commissioners who primarily are involved with the city of Pensacola, and they represent the vast majority of Pensacola. So I have talked with both, in a sense, talked with Lumen, and I know Mark has talked with, and some people have been talking with Robert. I did see Janice yesterday and Eric Gilmore, both in mask at the Sacred Heart event. I think from that standpoint, I hope they will see that they can play a part in this. And if we really all work together, we can beat this thing back in 3 weeks and be back to where we were at the 1st of June. But we really just it's got to be the whole region working together on this.
Next question is from Laura. Steph has questions about Cordova Mall. Would the mask requirement extend to common areas in the mall or just individual stores?
We would be expecting it to see. If I need to talk to Wes, I'll be happy to Wes Payne to talk with him. We'd expect it to include all common areas that are indoors. I mean, again, it's if you saw what the governor said, I forgot the 3 C's. It's congestion. It's like in climate controlled space. I mean, when you're indoors in your congested area, that's just going to make it worse. If we can do more things outside, that makes it better. It certainly appears that UV lights can stop this very fast. So again, if we're outdoors, it's likely. But if you're indoors, we really need you to work, not only common areas, but also inside the stores. Let me just say real quick. This is not something foreign. We at City Hall have been doing this since probably late April. I'm looking at Keith. I think we were doing this late April. We were wearing masks everywhere in common areas of City Hall. Again, you're not required to wear one in your office, but if somebody else comes into your office, they have to wear a mask and you have to put your mask on. We've been operating like this for a long time. I mean, it's almost become second nature to me to wear a mask. And I understand it was very foreign the first time you wear it, but after you do it, it gets foreign. It's probably, like I said, it seemed foreign to go to a restaurant and have people not smoke. And then all of a sudden now it seems like crazy. If you're in a restaurant, I remember I was in Europe last year and somebody was smoking in a restaurant. I thought this is illegal. And then I realized I was not in the United States. We've taken it for granted. It's totally gone the other way. I think the same thing's going on with the mask. If you do it and you get used to doing it, it's a common courtesy. It's like opening the door for somebody. It's just you're thinking about them more than you're thinking about yourself. And if you think that reason, again, I know a lot of people are concerned because they say, well, it doesn't solve me. It doesn't protect me. I don't want to wear a mask. I get it. It doesn't protect you. It protects everybody else. And if you have courtesy for those other individuals and thought for them, wear a mask. Wear a mask for them because you don't know. You could be one of the 4,500 people out there that's got COVID and doesn't realize it and is potentially passing it on.
This is from Jeremy. Will the city issue tickets or fine people who do not wear a mask?
At this point, we're working on educational. We're trying to bring up educational. I don't know where the city council will go with their order. I have no idea. The mayor's order at this point is trying to deal with educational, making businesses aware. The businesses have the ability to kick people out if they want to. So, from our standpoint, it really becomes what they want to do. If they're concerned about their employees and the health of their employees, we think we would want to give them the ability to do something. We, at the same time, we want to educate people as much as possible. So right now, that's what we're looking at. I have no idea where the city council may go with this, but we'll see tomorrow.
This is from Jim. On the city council proposed emergency ordinance on masks, does that differ in any way from your emergency order, or would it be more of the city council endorsing your action on masks?
I think they're writing their own order. I don't know. I mean, I'd heard there were several members that wanted to have input, and I think they've been talking to the city attorney. So I haven't had the chance to talk to her this morning to see what's going on and if it's different in any way than ours. I'll certainly know more after we get done with this press conference today. I'll get with her and find out a little bit more about it. But what I heard is there may be some differences. Certainly, there are probably differences from the individuals that wanted to do this. So I don't think they're all going to be the similar. But I think there will be some changes from the mayor's ordinance. But we'll see what they want to do and at that point that will go forward. But as long as we were in the emergency order, it was still in an emergency time period, I think the council still has the chance to stay with the emergency declaration and with the mayor's order. If that's what they choose, they may choose to go their own order. We'll figure all that out tomorrow.
And this is from Daniel at WKRG. You already kind of touched on this, but how is the mask order being enforced? We have heard reports of people not wearing masks in city businesses.
And at this point, we just rolled it out on Friday. We've been working with educational portions of it. I got an email from one lady who wants it in her business. She's out at Mobile Highway in Fairfield, and she wants it in her business. And she writes and she says, "Well, everybody's telling me I'm not in the city limits." So it's kind of educational. There are people that would like to have it in their business, but they don't live in the city limits. Understand that. There are other businesses that have been using it, and again, we think the biggest enforcement is for those businesses that do choose to deny people based on that. They can. And then lastly, at this particular time, we're looking to work with it educationally and make people aware of what needs to happen. I've gotten a ton of emails. I realize I got a ton of emails saying, "Hey, the mask on the box says it doesn't protect me." And I keep trying to explain to them, you're 100% correct. This is not about you. We are not asking you to wear a mask to protect you. We would never do that. You have your right. You have your own right to go smoke. You have your own right to endanger your health in any way you want to. What we're worried about is what you do and how it impacts other people. And wearing the mask is the protection for other people. So that's why we're asking you to wear a mask. It's not for you. It's to protect other people. Just like we ask you not to smoke in public to protect other people, we're going to ask you to wear a mask in public to protect other people. So you're home, you want to run around with people that have COVID and catch it, you have the right to go do that. We're not going to, your own individual car, your own individual home, this ordinance does not apply there. we have no problem if you wish to do things that you want to do. What we're asking you to do in public is to please think about others and remember that they are thinking about you. And so we just simply ask that you think about the same courtesy for them.
Next question is from John with Studio 850. Well, first he asked about the correct name of the Citizens Committee. So I'll just tell him it's the Citizens Police Advisory Committee. But he asked for an update on those public meetings. Do we have a schedule yet, and will they be noticed for the public?
They will absolutely be noticed for the public. It is very likely in the near term that they will have to be live streamed. Obviously, we're in the middle of a fairly significant spike of community spread. So again, this is somewhat while we pivoted where we first thought at the very beginning of June, where we were going one direction and came back. We wanted to do everything with a lot of town halls. It doesn't appear that we're going to be able to do as many town halls as much as virtual. So the idea was to get the members. I think they were shooting for a time next week. And again, Casey, I'll wait to hear from you, but I think it was either the next week or the following week. It depended on when they could get people together. Obviously, 4th of July is this week. I don't know what people's plans are. There are a lot of places that are closed if people had family plans. So we knew this week, probably even the first of next week, was going to be difficult. After that, we were really just trying to shoot for a time. It's 12 individual calendars with other people, so it's probably about 20 people we've got to get together. We probably will have it somewhere like a Hagler Mason or downstairs in the chambers. We'll have the meeting there where we can live stream it, where everybody can see it. It will be properly noticed. But we've got to do it in a way that we can get everybody on the same schedule, and just trying to bring everybody's schedules together probably means we won't start that first meeting until next week or the next week, depending on what it is. But that's our goal. From there, we still would like those individuals to go out in the communities in small groups that they associate with and bring back feedback. Ultimately, I think we would like to do some virtual town halls on Zoom and other stuff. But you know, all those things. And after I finish this question, I want to make a couple of comments on other things that I forgot to mention. But again, you know, that's kind of where we are. And before we take another question, Casey, I did want to do a couple of things. I forgot to write my notes on here, and I wanted to say that a couple of things. I want to say thank you to Greg Farrar, an attorney here. I know he worked, I think, Chris Dosev, to put together a Blue Lives Matter on Friday, a rally. There were about 40 of us there at the MLK Plaza. I know Tommy was there, some other police, Captain Brown, Lieutenant Bauer. There were other police officers there, very, very much appreciated in support of our police officers, and they are doing an incredible job. I also want to say over the weekend, what an awesome job. I went twice and looked at the mural on A Street, the Black Lives Matter. It's very impressive. You know, it was a great, the arts people there did a great job making it look incredible. It kind of shows when a community comes together what can be done. And I thought the mural looked really good on A Street. Went and saw the group there a couple of times to look at it. So there's some great things that were going on in the community that I meant to recognize earlier, and just say we had a couple events happening over the weekend that were great events, and those are the kind of things that I think in a community of our size and the diversity of our community can be very good for us to embrace and work in all things. And I was very proud to be a part of both of those things. So as we keep moving forward, you know, we're going to keep working as a community and finding ways to make ourselves better and how we work together better.
And before I go to the next question, I'll just confirm that yes, staff is working on potentially scheduling that first committee meeting for next week. As you mentioned, it's a lot of schedules to coordinate, so we will see how that goes, but we'll definitely publicly notice it. It's a Sunshine Committee, so if you're interested in that, you won't miss the meeting. We'll make sure to announce it.
The reason that I thought about it is I saw Cedric Alexander that morning, Saturday morning, when I went to the Black Lives Matter mural. He was there with Lawrence Powell. Had a chance to talk with him a little bit about his expectation with it. So we did talk a little bit while I was there. But that's what all of a sudden made me think about. I forgot to recognize both the Blue Lives Matter rally and the Black Lives Matter mural.
And we have two questions about the city's yellow status from Laura and Jeremy. So I'm going to kind of combine them. Laura asked if you could elaborate on what going yellow means with fire and police and what numbers are involved. And then Jeremy asked about whether the city had a significant number of first responders sidelined with the yellow status.
We obviously said some of those are sidelined. Some of those are sidelined pending test only because of contact. So they could easily not be contaminated. But again, our policy is once we know you're in potential contact with somebody who has it, until you get a negative test, you are somewhat sidelined, and it takes about 5 days to go get a test to know whether you have it or not. So we're working within that and trying to get people back as fast as possible. Again, yellow, if you don't remember, we talked about before, would be like 15% down. So we're at the tip part of that, but we've experienced it both within police and fire because of some things that have happened. Just the spread of the virus over the last week that have happened in both those cases. It's very likely that if we get back negative tests, that we can come back and move in that direction. But I know it's just there were a series of issues. And again, remember, we have attrition at any particular time in any of these forces, just natural attrition that may happen if somebody, gets sick or broken arm or something else, and they can't, there's just a number of different things that are non-COVID that you throw COVID on top of it that pushes us to that point. But so at this particular time, both of those forces are in yellow. Let me be very clear. Yellow does not mean we can't do stuff. Yellow means we can do everything that we need to be doing to protect the city with both forces. What it means is we don't have a lot of slack. So we can still function, but we have really zero slack. So if that's the case, we want to be very cautious. That's why we go to yellow. Yellow is caution. So we're trying to be cautious with what we do. We're also urging caution with everything else, which is why we've paused. We're not going to do the splash pad. Any things that we think may potentially increase, may increase the spread of COVID, we're going to pause at this particular time. We're not going to do anything going further. I think my understanding is baseball, Bill Bond baseball wraps up this week. We aren't going to be taking on any other youth activity sports for a while. So at this point, we're pausing. So a number of things we're paused in. But, if we have them going, like I said, right now, still this week, Bill Bond will be continuing to go this week and finish up. But that's kind of what we were doing with youth athletics. And then we will kind of, from there, we'll reevaluate and see where we go.
This is from Jeremy. Have hospitals expressed concerns to you regarding capacity?
There is, what they say is they always run at essentially capacity, what they have. They feel like with surge, they can still handle it. The challenges, to some degree, ICU issues could be there, but things like ventilators and other stuff are not a problem. I think daily beds probably are not a problem. So they feel like they probably are kind of yellowish, maybe getting that point, but they think there's no reason for them to go back. And they're one of the very first that said, hey, we're not saying we need to go backwards. We're just saying we need to be judicious in what we do. And they think, again, washing hands, not shaking hands, wearing masks are things we need to be doing as a community. If we do those things, we ourselves can actually push this down without closing businesses.
And this is a related question from Jim. Are you getting numbers on ICU capacity at local hospitals? And if so, what do those numbers look like, and should they be made public?
Oh, I mean, ICU flexes on an individual trauma. I mean, if we had no COVID, what we generally had is you had trauma happening and then trauma leaving ICU. So from what I'm hearing, COVID is not creating the problem on their ICU. They have their own surgeries in going forward. They believe both Dawn and Mark told me they could manage, and they were within a situation that they could manage. They obviously, though, want to figure out ways to prevent in any way the public can prevent things, so that they don't have to become drastically acute on their beds. So at this particular time, they both highly endorsed mask wearing, and that's why we're moving forward with what we're doing.
And this is from Jim as well. Do you think any mask requirement will be effective without Escambia County adopting a similar policy?
It's. I think these were some of the challenges that we looked at last week that we talked. We felt like we needed to move in a direction that would begin to get the community thinking, but we agree an Escambia-wide mask ordinance would be much more effective for the public than simply a city mask policy. But again, we don't control the county. We hope they will look at that. And I really think even if Escambia County did one, that would also not totally be effective without Santa Rosa County doing one. If Santa Rosa and Escambia both did one, and the municipalities within them are obviously already participating, I think that's something that would be very strong for the region, and we could really begin to drive, COVID back down to where it was a non-factor. I mean, that's kind of, the discussions we had with the hospitals.
And I think we kind of already covered this, but Jeremy had asked any movement on the citizen committee front, and when will town halls begin, but we don't have dates yet for those.
Yeah, no, like I said before, I saw Cedric Saturday morning. We talked a little bit about that. We talked about just trying to get the group together. We also talked, obviously, about the numbers of where we were in COVID and where we were with the mask requirements. So, I mean, I think he's realistic in understanding that we're probably going to go to more virtual town halls at this particular time than in meeting. I mean, obviously, getting large groups together under a roof in a climate controlled condition is that's the kind of thing that is rampant for COVID. So we don't want to do that. So you're gonna see us more, properly spaced, socially distanced, doing things like Zoom and those kind of things.
And this is from Jeremy. Is the city still planning to return to public in-person meetings for city council in July?
I think Jewel has already said she's taken July off from meetings. So I believe, and I know Casey, I think I'm looking at y'all. I believe that's the case. I think Jewel, the meetings of whether people go in or not is not my decision. Is the fair. It's the council president's decision. And it is my understanding, at least what I was told last week, is that Jewel, when the governor shifted everything to August 1st, that Jewel asked that all city council things go in that direction. So whereas I thought the meetings in July were going to have, after July 7th, we're going to open up. It does not appear that we're going to do that, but that would ultimately have to be confirmed by the council staff and council president. That's really her call. It's not my call. So I think at this point, I think that's what she's made a call, and then the governor definitely changed out the date so that we could do that. So I believe, he's asking for us to look at continuing that operation.
And I'm not sure on that, Mayor, but I agree it would have to be something that we'd confirm with the council president. This is from Jeremy as well. Has staff made any determinations about the possibilities at Lee/Florida Square?
I don't believe. I mean, from Staff, Lee Square, Florida Square, that just went to the recreation committee, and then it goes directly to council. So it's scheduled to go to council for a vote. If you're talking about the monuments within that, there is expected a staff document that will probably late this week, early next week, come forward. So I think staff is still working on that and any other documents they have for council. So I expect those either toward the end of the week or the first of next week.
And this is from John at Studio 850. Does the mayor believe there is adequate testing available? Yesterday, a hospital executive told the governor she needed more testing capacity.
I mean, I was there. I think, John, I think there are two different factors that are there. I mean, I will say this much. Sacred Heart has been an amazing partner to have with us because we've gotten such fast results from them. And what they would like to do is more 24-hour test capacity. And that's what, that I think is what they were telling the governor. The number of sites that we have, I don't think we need any more number of sites. I think we're able to test a tremendous number of people. The challenge, I think that you were there yesterday with Dawn. I think what Dawn's question was about not necessarily testing, but testing the rate at which it comes back. And we did have this discussion when we were in a closed room situation with the hospital and the governor. And it was one of the things I mentioned to the governor, that it is difficult when you can't find out for 5 or 6 days whether somebody tested positive enough. It makes it difficult for you to make decisions because you're in such lag time. We really need that 24 to 48 hours. He explained some things that the state was working with, and again, he said for the most part they should be able to get probably 72 hours, 48 to 72 hours. That's their goal. It's certainly better than 5 to 6 days. I know some people out there, if you go to West Florida, it could be 7, 8 days before you get your test results back. Those are things that are really out of our hands. They're out of actually the governor's hands, but he is trying to get state testing sites where he can do, I think he showed that yesterday, where they can do 10,000 a day, and that I think is more what he was talking about, not the capacity to get the test done, the capacity to just take samples. We're probably good. I mean, I think we've got what we need there. The problem is how long it takes the test to get back, and I think the governor talked about some of that yesterday. We're getting better at that. Everything we're doing, we're getting better at. So again, much the same way that Jeremy talked about, why do we need to close anything? The governor's very clear. We're getting better at everything we're doing, which is why we probably don't need to ever go back to closing things. But that doesn't mean we don't need the mask ordinance. And I think that's kind of where we were looking at.
And we don't have any more questions.
Well, thank you very much. We'll look forward to seeing you next week. Please wear your mask, and we'll if we can work together, we can really beat down this COVID thing and get it back to where it was in May and early June. So that's our goal. Stay safe out there, and we'll keep trying to work together. Thanks.